Welcome into another live edition of Bully Ball on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Today, the San Francisco 49ers mandatory minicamp opened, and there was nothing really to speak about, but there are things to speak about that have to do with the team, and we're going to talk about it all right after this. Me and Steph Sanchez, stick around. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Steph Sanchez. This is the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network, the only podcast that has unfollowed the Gold Standard Podcast Network on Instagram. Steph, how's it going?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Mandatory minicamp is going, and now the 49ers are moving along, and everything feels great, and there's a few things to be a little concerned about. Kyle Shanahan, allowed some updates today about players, but it didn't seem too off-putting. But we have to start with what everybody's always talking about these days on 49ers Twitter. Brandon Aiyuk, who hates the 49ers and hates his teammates, was there today, hanging around, looking like a little, bouncy, whatever the word is. He didn't practice, and obviously we got the update later on that Kyle Shanahan said he won't be ready for training camp. Not a big shock at all. But why does Brandon Aiyuk hate his teammates if he's out there hanging out with them and everything, and hate the 49ers if he's out there hanging out with them?
Yeah, it's almost like someone forced him, right? To go out there.
Blink twice if you're being held hostage, Brandon.
Yeah. He wasn't wearing the appropriate attire. I think Kyle yelled at him. No, I'm kidding, but
then we're still back.
It was nice to see Brandon out there. I know I believe it was Leonard Hankerson, is the 49ers wide receiver coach, that kind of alluded to, him kind of encouraging Brandon Aiyuk to maybe be more of a coach right now, as best he can be, while he's, still getting up to speed, coming off that ACL tear, and he's obviously limited in what he can do. So he was out there with the guys, and as the guys are running routes, he's there alongside them, not running routes, but just, there. So it's good to see, I guess. I kind of wonder, though, like, if the team is trying to encourage him to, be this veteran that is kind of going to be the exemplary wide receiver of this group, because without Debo, like, he is that guy now, right? Like, he's that veteran who's been on the team for a number of years now. Wide receiver one, you just got the bag, and here's the video of him, alongside these guys. I kind of wonder if, part of them wanting to have him be more involved, like, I wonder if he's ready for that. Like, remember when Brandon Aiyuk joined the team as a rookie and he was so quiet, introverted? I feel like it took him a while to even break free from that and just be a little more open in speaking with the media and things like that. And, I just don't think that's him as a guy right now and as a player. And I do think the team is maybe encouraging him to do that. And it almost feels like it looks unnatural, honestly, just looking at these videos, and it's kind of like, I don't know what to do. That's just the way I'm reading it. I could be reading into it way too much, Jay, but I just kind of wonder if he's ready to be that guy yet. I understand from the 49ers standpoint wanting him to be that, like, hey man, we just paid you a lot of money. We got a lot of young guys. Like, we want you to be that example for them. But I just wonder if he's ready.
Leonard Hankerson called him a quasi-coach, being in there and also helping guys be there. What a selfish person. Just a quasi-coach. I think if he's not taking on a full-time coach role at this point, my God, man. And the reason that I keep making these jokes is because I couldn't help but notice in our last episode when we talked about Brandon Aiyuk, and you and I both said we don't care. There was one particular comment that really stuck out to me when I do it, because, yeah, I do read the comments and everything. You just lost a subscriber. How could you unsubscribe to the pod because we said we don't care about what Brandon Aiyuk shows on social media and posts on social media? Like, listen, man, if you want to unsubscribe for a reason, I've got plenty of things to say that are far more controversial and things that'll get you far more upset. And the point that I'm trying to make is this whole Brandon Aiyuk thing has elicited so many strong, weird responses from all corners and all different things. Trade him. Oh, he's terrible. Oh, this. Oh, guys, relax. It's social media. It doesn't matter. And when he posts something on social media, everybody goes to slam him. But when the article comes out that Leonard Hankerson's talking about Brandon Aiyuk being a really good role model to these guys and being a quasi coach, zoop, not a word. Not a word. It's only one or the other, right? Not a word. So I wanted to start with that because the way that I've been reading everything that's been going on social media about Brandon Aiyuk, you would swear Brandon Aiyuk hates the team hates him. None of that is true. A lot of people are making that up in their head, and it just doesn't make sense. So I want to put that to bed. And look, Brandon Aiyuk's there. We did get an update. Kyle Shanahan says that he's not going to be ready for training camp. Wouldn't worry too much about that. I think the first 4 weeks, you could probably say he's not going to be around. I mean, that's probably just my guesstimate. I'm not a doctor, but I wouldn't be shocked, right? And that's why you have Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings. Speaking of Ricky Pearsall, we're a little bummed out when we heard about Ricky Pearsall saying, hey, he's not going to be ready until training camp. Well, Kyle Shanahan said, hey, he could have went. We're just being very careful with him. That makes me feel a lot better than if he just couldn't at all.
I think that's kind of the overall theme from a lot of the injuries that we've been hearing about. And you're hearing about guys that you haven't necessarily heard about certain injuries tied to them, but a lot of veterans, you hear about them working off to the side. Like, it's all this very cautionary approach, and it's minicamp. It's, what we just went through, OTAs, like all of that is not so serious, but it is valuable for some players. And that's basically what this part of the season or the off season is for. So as we're seeing here, just some of the injury updates that Kyle Shanahan gave us, Jair Brown, working through the ankle, Ricky Pearsall, Michael Williams, Alfred Collins, Andre Dillard, Juwan Jennings, George Odom, Yetur Gross-Matos. Those are all guys, according to Kyle Shanahan, that will be back for the start of training camp. And I recall that as far as Ricky Pearsall, Kyle did say that initially when the hamstring injury was reported. Like, he did say, yeah, he'll probably be ready by minicamp, but we probably won't have him out there again because, like, it's cautionary more so than anything. There's no reason to have these guys risking further injury. Like Michael Williams, for example, he has a tight hamstring. Like, it's so let's not even risk him furthering that and making it worse. So, this is par for the course, I think, at this time of the year. One thing that was interesting, Jay, is that Kyle Shanahan said, yeah, like, I kind of want to cancel the week of practice, but this time is valuable for 20 guys. That's not a coincidence. You mentioned 20 guys. There's 20 rookies on this team, right? So obviously this time is most valuable for them and wanting to get them up to speed. They need the reps and things like that. So that's what this time is about. And then it's also about, practicing, trying new things, which I'm sure we'll get to in a bit. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun time.
Now, let's stick with the wide receivers. So Ricky Pearsall is going to be good for training camp as well. Juwan Jennings off to the side. Not really too concerned, not worrying about that. But here's something that really, really makes me happy, makes me smile, makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. Kyle Shanahan on Jacob Cowing. Jacob, I thought, put in some of the most work that anyone did over the offseason, and I think it's really transferred over into those OTA practices. Excellent news to hear. The only thing that would have made me feel better is if he would have said that Jacob Cowing was in the best shape of his life. But
is that ever true, though? So I don't know if that would have made us feel better.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is what it is. So, I mean, it would. I'd be like, oh, man, best shape of his life, 1,000-yard receiver. I mean, look, it's minicamp. It's training camp. We spent many a years saying that Trent Taylor is going to be a Pro Bowler, right? Like, this is, it's what is it? The thing, the joke that we keep making all the time? wide receiver 1 season unlocked, loading, like that, like it's like
season 2 loading.
Season 2 loading for Jacob Cowie. Like this is what this is. This right here is literally what makes people make those posts. Breakout season coming, incoming, loading. All right, bro. Like, but no, seriously, I really have high hopes for Jacob Cowing, and I'll take anything that I can hear that's good, especially since, we can't watch what's going on. And, by the way, training camp is going, we might not even be able to watch that because they're going to put that in the stadium and put the fans outside or whatever. Whatever. That's a whole nother story for another day. But
Jacob Cowing, drone. You have to fly a drone over to catch practice.
You're gonna have to climb one of the flagpoles to be up there to see the way that they're gonna start putting this out there, because they just don't want anybody to ever watch training camp. Gotta love the 49ers. But Jacob Cowing, we in, we out, we moving. What are we thinking?
I think it's huge to hear Kyle Shanahan pretty much echo the same sort of comments that Brock Purdy also gave on Jacob Cowing. And I believe, even George Kittle said, like, he looks bigger. And so everyone that has been asked about Cowing has nothing but good things to say about how he's attacking this offseason. And that, to me, tells me that it's looking like a season of growth for him, right? So I think that's huge. I think the biggest issue for him last year was probably from the playbook standpoint, right? Like, I think you've said it before, Jay. It's not so much the questions we had about his talent. We knew that was there. It was just more so of, okay, what's keeping him from getting on the field? And I think, probably a little bit of the playbook thing, being in the doghouse and just not having that same trust from Kyle Shanahan that maybe Ricky Pearsall had earned over the same course of time. Now for Jacob Cowing, especially with Ricky Pearsall out right now, like, I think that this is a big opportunity. And of course, Brandon Aiyuk being out, this is a big opportunity for him.
Robinson's not going to be playing the first 3 weeks.
Do we know that?
He's going to be suspended for something.
I know. We just don't know. And like, I wish someone would ask Kyle Shanahan about that, because it's like, do you know? Do we know?
He's going to get mad. No, why?
I know, why? He probably would.
Yeah, he's gonna be like, I don't know why you're asking me that.
But I mean, it's a question that we all kind of have. But in any case, like, yeah, all these factors are going to be opportunities for Jacob Cowing. And one thing Brock said was, like, he's leading the line off in drills, and that's big, right? So he's kind of handling himself in a way like a veteran in front of some of these younger guys. And I think that's big. That says a lot. Obviously, building that trust with Brock Purdy this offseason, along with Ricky Pearsall, having that timing with him, that connection is going to be huge. And as a lot of guys have said in their pressers so far, it's not football yet. We got to see it all come together once real game action happens. We're a long ways from that. But I feel really good about what people are saying about Jacob Cowing so far, and Jordan Watkins, Jay.
Oh yeah, Jordan Watkins. I just finished a dynasty rookie draft in the 4th round. I was like, my last pick was there. I was just like, he's getting too much hype. I just got to grab him and snatch him up or whatever. So I'm in. A 4th round investment is not bad. But yeah, exactly. Wide receiver Watkins loading. I did want to ask you this. While the Brandon Aiyuk news about him not being available until training camp is fine, because I feel like it's expected, does the Malik Mustafa news about him not being ready for training camp kind of put a little bit of a damper on something? Because that safety group, and we talked about it. Remember last episode, Jason Pinnock and Richie Grant are certainly safeties who have played in the NFL. That's what I want to say.
That's it.
That's it. I mean, that's all I got. But that makes you a little bit more concerned, because, and I want to also clarify, because everyone, well, not everyone, a few people seem to be confused as to what the injury is right now. When you say ACL injury, he didn't tear his ACL.
Right.
He had a re-aggravation of an ACL injury in the season finale. What does that mean? I'm not a doctor, but it doesn't mean that he tore his ACL. Now, we don't know how long it's going to be, but when you look at this safety group, and I have another conversation that I want to pivot this to, because it does have to do with the fact that, Jair Alexander's available, Jalen Ramsey's on the trading block, like there's something else that I kind of want to throw at you. But this safety group now, if Malik Mustafa is not going to be there, it's a little bit, you're a little bit nervous, even if, Marcus Siegel is somebody that you're high on, even though we haven't seen him play it down yet. And, and Jair Brown is going to be somebody who's going to have to step right in, like if he's going to play in training camp. So the safety group, it doesn't feel as good right now.
Yeah, we can't be high on Siegel. We haven't seen him. We can't even be high on Jair Brown because, we don't know what version of Jair Brown we're going to get. I do think having better coaching in his corner with Robert Saleh, that could help, right? I also think another thing that could help the safety group is going to be the better defensive line. That's another thing we spoke about last week, right? So maybe the 49ers are banking on that. Maybe they're waiting till the right time to address the safety position because I think, we've also said that if the 49ers add someone, it's probably more likely that it happens before that first week of training camp. And out of every position that we still have questions on, and there's still a few, right? Safety is probably the biggest question that we have. And so I got to imagine that's one that they look to address. And we've talked about it. There's guys out there that are probably going to be available for the 49ers, if they so wish to address it. I do think, for now, maybe they just want to get a good look at some of those depth guys that they do have, like Jason Pinnock, who, apparently had an interception off of Purdy today. So it seems like he's coming along, maybe. Also, Richie Grant. They want to get a good look at those guys without maybe additional competition and just see if any of those guys, end up leading the pack a little bit. And Pinnock does have some special teams experience as well, which I think could help him. But yeah, I mean, you're not exactly jumping for joy about having a guy like Pinnock potentially start. That is concerning, right? So yeah, that's a bit of a bummer. I think ever since the Mustafa injury news was even brought up, there was a lot of vagueness around it, right? We didn't really know what the timeline was going to be. So, now we know he's not going to be ready for training camp, but that just further underlines the importance for adding someone at some point. But yeah, I don't see it happening right now, but probably closer to camp. I want to bet some money that they do.
Julian Blackmon, Justin Simmons, you're still out there. The 49ers certainly have enough to make a move for one of those guys. Absolutely. I want to ask you this. I want to pivot from that to this because of the secondary. Why isn't cornerback a concern for the 49ers? And here's what I'm going to say. Ronaldo Green's a dog and so is Diamador Lenore. What if one of those guys gets hurt?
Yeah.
Who plays? Trey Brown? Darrell Luter. So how is cornerback not a concern right now for this team? I think Upton Stout plays slot. He can't play outside. That's cool. The idea of Upton Stout is that both those guys have to be there. My question is this. Are the 49ers just operating under a perfect world scenario where nobody ever gets hurt? No, Demo didn't get hurt last year or anything like that.
They never do that, Jay. They never do that.
Look, they're very top heavy. Those two guys are nasty. We're good there. As long as they don't get hurt. If they get hurt, dear God help you. I don't care about scheme. I don't care about front seven. You're about to see some people that shouldn't be out there. So I'll present you this. Jair Alexander, Jalen Ramsey, Greg Newsome. Now, I would present this in this way. Jair Alexander is probably not going to cost much, and even if he is somebody who hasn't missed any games, he sounds like a 40. I mean, he hasn't played many games. He sounds like a 49er to me then, right? And he'd be perfect depth, right? Because then you can start him and Green outside, and you can move Diamador Lenore inside, and it won't cost him anything. Fine. You don't like Jair Alexander? Got you. Jalen Ramsey would cost you draft assets, but the 49ers have 30 draft picks every year for the next few years. Remember, they haven't been giving any of them up at this point. Now, if you're looking for a free safety complement, I think Jalen Ramsey would be converted to that and would be much better in that role next to a Malik Mustafa as a veteran, as a ring chaser. Fine. You don't like that one? Cool. I got another one for you. Greg Newsome is probably the ideal target for the 49ers during the trade deadline. Meaning, if there is something that happens to the cornerback room, whether it's, again, Demo or Bernardo Green and they get injured, Greg Newsome is somebody the 49ers can absolutely target. Why? One, his contract's cheap. Two, his contract is expiring. And three, it's the Cleveland Browns. They're not going to be winning anything. So they're going to be looking to unload everything, right? So all I'm saying is this. If you don't like any of those options, that's fine. But I have a big concern about what this cornerback room is going to look like behind those two guys because it's a bunch of unknowns, and that can get very scary.
Yeah, I think there are concerns there, like there are concerns on a lot of top-heavy positions on this team, and there's a lot, right? Like there is. I think when it comes to that, I would think the 49ers are more likely to take a wait and see approach. Let's just wait and see if, an injury does happen and we can act on it then. Remember all the money
we love reactive moments instead of proactive.
Remember all the money, though, that they have going into the season. Remember that the 49ers, if they feel like it's necessary, they're okay with making a mid-season trade where, maybe you get better value on guys. And like I keep saying, like I do think that they could address it going into training camp as well. Once we get down to roster cuts, even like then you go bargain shopping. The 49ers are always looking for value at the end of the day. So while I do think they probably called in on a guy like Jair Alexander, there are going to be other teams in that mix as well. The 49ers going to let the chips fall and kind of see where they lay. I see this situation with Alexander being similar to Joey Bosa, where, the 49ers are interested. Yeah, there's a lot of like injury concerns with Jair Alexander the last couple of years. He hasn't played a lot of games. So that's why the 49ers, and I think they're right to, want him at a certain price, making sure it doesn't go past a certain number. Otherwise, we're not interested. But what about those other teams? Those other teams might be interested in him at a higher price and the 49ers would be willing to pay, just like we saw Joey Bosa, get a deal from another team. And we're like, why would anyone, pay him something like that? So I can see it happening like that with Alexander. But to your point, like there's other cornerbacks that are available too. I just think they can wait on some of those guys and they can wait to see, who gets cut, in roster cut downs. There's always some surprises. Who gets dealt around that time? There's always surprises. Like, I think for that, they can wait on it a little bit more. Again, there's a lot of these positions where you can make the case the 49ers should bring someone in, but I think they have other priorities like safety. I would say bigger priority than that. But I get your concern. I do think the 49ers do operate in such a way where they're always assuming that everything will go right and never quite prepare for the worst case scenarios. You can't possibly prepare for everything, but it would be nice sometimes to see them try.
Yeah, and Leon Sandcastle, shout out to Dion, Asante Samuel Jr., right? And that's, again, you just wait for it. He has some medical landmarks to go to. Seems like he'd be a fit. Concern is tackling, run defense, that's fine. But again, it's good depth, right? Like you feel good about that. Another name that keeps popping up, if you've hung out with Robert Saleh and been in an elevator with him, you better believe that you're probably going to be linked to them. That's Jordan Whitehead from the Bucks, right? Like he played with the Bucks formerly. He's linked to him as well too. A little bit more about Jair Alexander. Lest we forget, Robert Saleh was a consultant over there in Green Bay as well last year. Has gotten eyes on him. So I think two things can be true. It's got to pass the Robert Saleh smelling test, right? Because he's the one who's putting his defense together. And if anybody knows, it's him. It's definitely him about what he thinks about him as well too. But we're going to see how this goes. I think, again, when you look at, oh my God, what's the depth going to look like? You can't obviously have star players at every single position or players right behind them. But, the depth gets scary when you start to read these names that are behind those guys. Oh my God. It is. You know what, Rob, look up every single cornerback that's on this 90-man roster right now and post it on the thing and post it up because I want to read some of these names. And I want to read some of these names. And I'm not trying to invoke any fear, but you guys need to be concerned. You guys need to be very
Fear
concerned. Yeah.
mongering over here.
Yeah, fear. You know what? The good vibes are over. It's time to get negative and everything. No, it's just looking up and down this roster, where it's at, and how many people they're going to carry. I do think the 49ers really want to get Darrell Luter a shot, and they really believe in him. I don't think they want him to be a special teams guy. That's somebody that I really feel, and again, I'm just going off vibes, that they're really high on. But they do need to bring in more proven commodities, right? Like one way or another. And I don't know what that looks like. And again, it doesn't need to be some splashy move. Just saying Jair Alexander and Jalen Ramsey is just pointing out somebody who's, available. It doesn't mean that that's the necessary fix, So it's just looking at safety. Now you get a little weary about what's going on when you hear about Malik Mustafa. Again, Justin Simmons, we talked about that, Jordan Whitehead, all those guys that are there that you can add. That's fine. Maybe you just bank on Marcus Siegel and Jair Brown. You feel good about that. Listen to these names for our audio listeners. If you have a kid in the car and you're driving, they're not car sick. They're not throwing up because they're car sick. They're throwing up because of these names. Ready? Trey Avery, Trey Brown, Derek Canteen, Dallas Flowers, Ronaldo Green is really good, Chase Lucas, special teamer, Diamador Lenore, Darrell Luter, Jacob Robinson, who people are actually really high on, so maybe I should, slow it down a little bit, with that as well too, and Upton Stout. Derek Canteen sounds like when you make a Madden player and you don't change the name at all, like that doesn't even seem real.
Even Dallas Flowers,
Flowers is crazy. Yeah, exactly. Like what? And then two trays again. It's just like it's almost like they were two trays. They were outside. They were outside the stadium, and they're just asking people, "Hey, have you ever played cornerback?" And he's like, "Yeah, I did in flag football." You know what? You're on a 90-man roster. Get in there. Like they're just bringing them in right in front of the stadium. I'm just nervous about this cornerback room outside of the things that we know, and a lot of what they're banking on is just that these guys are never going to get hurt. There's never going to be any issues. And I don't think that that's a smart way to operate.
Yes, I have concerns on that too. So we'll see how the 49ers address it. And hopefully the defensive line is a lot better because they'll need to be to keep the secondary looking good. But another thing, speaking of the defensive line, like hearing more guys talk about Bryce Huff, hearing Trent Williams talk about Michael Williams, all those things really excited me. Like Kyle Shanahan talking about Huff, like mentioned that he's probably the fastest get off guy that they've had since D Ford, right? So, and I think a lot of people have already said that, but coming from Kyle, I think that's huge. That one thing he mentioned, people are going to have to chip him, right? What do people do with Nick Bosa now? They chip him. Well, okay, that's going to free up Bosa then if they're going to have to be chipping Bryce Huff. So that's huge. And the exact quote is he affects the quarterbacks. We talk about just getting off the ball and how fast he does it. It'll be our best get off the ball guy we've had since D Ford.
Oh, wow. Well, yes. I mean, again, this defensive line, again, and I don't want to keep saying it this way because everybody's just going to think I'm being condescending and a jerk, but it can't be worse, right? Like it just can't be worse.
Yeah.
It can't be worse, right? It's just a fact. Yeah, it's just the law of averages here. Like we're just playing the law of averages. Now, how much better is the question? It's not, is it going to be better? It will be better, but how much better? But hearing that about Bryce Huff, and they're talking about how fast he is and everything, and I believe it was Trent that was like really like glowing, talking about him, like about he's gonna be a menace and it's gonna be a tough time. And also, by the way, I kind of wanted to make sure I didn't lose this one either. Trent Williams said this is the first time in 10 years that he's been at any sort of OTAs, minicamp, anything like that as well too. If you think that he's not taking this seriously, or if he doesn't understand the significance of the season, that's a really good sign as well too. But yeah, if we are talking about the shortcomings of a potential injury in the secondary, anything like that, then it has to be the defensive line that covers that up, right? And that's something that you really have to look forward to in terms of that. And this is the full quote about with Trent Williams. He's going to bring that speed demon off the edge, that guy that is going to require a running back or chip opposite of Nick. I think he has that kind of D Ford effect where they had in 19 that took them to the Super Bowl. Remember, Trent wasn't on that team. One of the reasons we had a really, really good defense for those couple of years is having that guy who can actually make the quarterback step up by getting a good jump off the ball and being able to bend the edge. And that's why he's a little bit smaller. He's faster. He's going to beat tackles. Like that's the idea. And again, when he's only going to be on the field when it's time to rush the passer. Stop the run and have some fun is what the 2025 49ers is going to be all about. But if we're talking about shortcomings in the secondary, then it has to be the defensive line that really picks it up for them, Steph. And that's where you need this development right away, kind of from all the rookies that they drafted.
Yeah, and speaking of the rookies now, like what Trent had to say about Michael Williams, it sounds like he's made quite the impression so far. He kind of talked about his size, called him a mountain of a man. And I think
like
he
that
talks
term.
about he talks about the like role that he could have, how he can play on first and second downs to stop the run, and then on third downs you kind of let him play wherever. So just figuring out the role for Michael and him already making that impression on Trent. And, we've heard other people speak pretty well about Michael so far too. Nick Bosa as well. He's a sponge to Bosa, right? So I think that's huge. And it just seems like he's going to be a rookie that's ready for the moment. And again, everyone's reiterating it's not football yet. We got to see it, when the lights come on and all that, and the pads come on. But the early impressions seem promising.
Okay, so have we covered everything we've heard from minicamp? Like, or are we arguing about like, do people look fast in videos, or have they lost a step, or like, or are we done with that?
I certainly would not talk about anyone's speed.
Trent Williams did say, "I could play until I'm 41." Yeah, my God, dude! Like, if you do that, like,
he said it before, and I think there's still some fear from fans, right, about what if.
He said it's year to year.
He said it's year to year, but one thing he did say in his presser was that he would ensure to let the team know ahead of time. Like he would give them ample notice. And obviously that's not a direct quote, but based on what he said, I felt very comfortable that, okay, not only does this guy want to play till 41, which that's the idea, right? He knows his body may have a different plan for him. He was kind of upfront about that as well. But he does know that he would like to tell the team early. I think that could alleviate a lot of concerns for us, that he's not going to be some like surprise retirement, like some others we've seen around the league, some others we've had with this team in the past, Joe Staley. Yeah, that made me feel better.
I do want to say this. Joe Staley did play that close to the vest for them. The 49ers did the impossible after the 2019 season. They moved on from a Hall of Fame left tackle to a more Hall of Fame left tackle. Like somehow you improved on a Hall of Famer, and Joe Staley let them know, and they played that shit close to the vest. Like, I think that's what we're talking about with Williams. I think what you're talking about with the fear is like Patrick Willis retiring and Chris Borland retiring, and like, all the, and it's just like, what? Oh my God, what
comes as a shock.
Yeah. What a horrific offseason. I'll never forget that. That just felt like watching that team crumble in 2 weeks was insane. But I did want to ask you this, now that we've kind of got through everything in minicamp. And this is just a fun exercise, right? Who would you say are the 5 most important San Francisco 49ers in 2025? You don't have to do order, because I think it's a little pointless right now. We don't have to do order. I think we can just do 5. You name one, I'll name one. You name one, I'll name one, and you tell me if you disagree. And then, like, with the 5th, I think, all right, one that we can say together and we can knock off is obviously Brock Purdy.
I wasn't gonna say Brock.
Really? The quarterback's not the most important. What?
Look,
he's not one of the most 5 important. Oh, here we. Oh, perfect. Good. This is a perfect place to start. Go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the reason I wouldn't say Brock is because if you're only forcing me to pick 5, then I think there's 5 players more important than Brock Purdy. And the part of the reason that I say that is because the 49ers brought in Mac Jones, and we haven't seen Mac Jones play in this offense yet.
Oh, look what you're doing now. Look what you're doing. I'm looking at
what
you.
You made me do.
I did not. I thought this was the easy one.
I'm just saying that it certainly was low-hanging fruit. I could have said Brock Purdy and like gone about my day, but I do think there's 5 more important players than him. And that's not a knock on Brock Purdy at all. Like, that's just saying that this offense is very quarterback friendly. When Mac Jones specifically was asked why he chose San Francisco, like, what was his answer? It was like, this offense is great for quarterbacks. And like, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks come through here and be able to run this offense. Now, I'm not saying Mac Jones would be able to run this offense as good as Brock Purdy. There's a reason Brock Purdy got the contract he got. There's a reason he's the starting quarterback. He's supplanted other quarterbacks of the past. But I'm just saying, like, if something were to happen to Brock Purdy, I'd feel more confident about the backup quarterback being able to step in and kind of handle the duties and finish out the season or finish out some games more so than I have in the last couple of years. I'll just say that. So it's not Brock Purdy that I'm going to list, but I'll say Christian McCaffrey would be one of mine.
Okay. I agree with Christian McCaffrey. And here's why. It's not the position that's not important. It's his impact.
It's McCaffrey.
Right? And the
yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not talking about a running back. I'm talking about Christian McCaffrey. Like, don't do that. So the reason that I'm going to agree with you on this is the year before, obviously, everything was clicking. Everything was perfect. Christian McCaffrey was literally the red zone play was hand the ball off to Christian McCaffrey and touchdown, right?
Yeah.
Then he doesn't play, and now you can't score in the red zone. And the 49ers had no problem moving the football. But you could see at times where Brock could have taken a check down to somebody else underneath, but because it wasn't Christian McCaffrey that was there, that he's just like, no, I gotta move the ball a little bit. Like, we hate and push back on the narrative of him being a check down merchant or whatever, but sometimes I would have liked to seen him take a little bit more of those check downs that were kind of there last year, because the only other qualifying quarterback that had less of a check down rate than him was Caleb Williams. So you can look at that and say, yeah, he's actually pushing the ball on the field, but you can look at that and say, hey, you probably should have taken a few more of those easy ones that are always going to be there. I think a little bit of that, it had to do with the fact that it wasn't Christian McCaffrey. You didn't necessarily trust whoever it was right under there. You hope Isaac Guerrero could have been that, but, he took him a while to really start to, develop and get some snaps. But, yeah, it's absolutely Christian McCaffrey. Importance to the team. If you don't believe us, believe them, banking on him being back to the place that he was and where the offense was without him. So yes, his success with this team and is in his importance, it's easily a top 5, and it's up there. And hanging out with Frank Gore, are both of those guys going to the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Or
we riot.
Oh yeah, all right. So yeah, I do think it's Christian McCaffrey. That is absolutely a good one. So let's operate without Brock Purdy under this one. Okay, you and I disagree. That's fine. But
you could say Brock Purdy. I mean,
no. I do say Brock Purdy just because quarterback is, the most important position on any team. Any team, right? Like you'd be hard pressed to. I mean, unless the quarterback's awful or they're, or the quarterback's just like not up to snuff. But I don't think that. Like, like if it's the Cleveland Browns, I wouldn't say Joe Flacco is one of the 5 most important Cleveland Browns, or Kenny Pickett. You know what I mean? Like, that's different. I just think for this team, I think he is. I definitely say Brock. You say Christian McCaffrey. I say Trent Williams.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely put Trent on this list as well. That's the thing about this team. Like, there's 5 is tough. Like, to only pick 5, I feel like there's a lot of impact guys. And frankly, like, there's been some guys that we haven't seen deal with injury. So like we haven't really seen this team without them to really know how much it would hurt if they were not there. Trent Williams, though, we have seen, and let me tell you, that definitely was a world of hurt. I think not just for Brock, but just like the cohesion of the entire line. I mean, he really is the glue, to that unit. So Trent is a big one. I agree with this one.
Okay. So we got 3. Here's going to be the fun part. We are going to have to leave off one of Nick Bosa, George Kittle, or Fred Warner.
I know.
This is going to be excellent. I think Nick Bosa is absolutely a top 5 important 49er. If we're talking about this defensive line, it starts and ends with him. He has to absolutely recapture that dominant player that he was. Not that he wasn't dominant last year, but it starts and ends with him. If we're talking about this defensive line better, this defensive line is nowhere. This defense is going to be nowhere without Nick Bosa I think Nick Bosa is absolutely a top 5 important 49er.
So defense is tough because I think at each level you have one impact guy. You have Bosa, you have Fred, and you have Lenoir. Two of those guys, Fred and Lenoir, you haven't really seen miss time, at least like significant amount of time. Again, where you don't really know how much this team would suffer or not suffer if they did not play. I think if Fred Warner, okay, I won't. I'll say Fred Warner, but for Bosa, I think we've seen him not play before, and I don't know. I think the whole defensive line at that time was pretty bad as well. So there wasn't a big difference, but that's just because the line was already bad. So yeah, I'd put Bosa on here, but I also struggle between the other two guys on this defense, like Lenoir. I think we're gonna get down to this list and we're not gonna have Lenoir in it. But if he did not play, kind of to your point, what we were talking about earlier about the corners, like if any of these guys like miss time, we're freaking screwed. So I'm also tempted, like I really want to put Lenoir in here. But Bosa, yes, I agree with that one.
What's Dante Johnson up to these days? What about
he's on speed dial. He's on speed dial still on Lynch's phone.
Drake Kirkpatrick or Josh Norman. Come on down, buddies. It's time for you to get a job. All right. So we've got Brock. Well, we've got Brock, McCaffrey, Bosa, Trent, Kittle, Warner, Lenoir. Oh baby. I'm gonna say Kittle, and here's why.
Yeah.
If we're talking about this offense, I think that this offense is finally waking up, and thank God that he has a quarterback who's, very willing to get him the football. It's kind of waking up that, hey, George Kittle's pretty fucking good, and maybe we should get him the ball a lot and throw it to him a lot because he still is the best tight end in the world, right? So if we're talking about the offense doing a little bit more of the heavy lifting while we're waiting for this defense to go through its bumps and bruises and everything as well too, it's hard for me to say that George Kittle is not a top 5 important 49er because this offense is going to have to be much more productive in the red zone, and that happens with him. And moving the football, it's with him as well too. He's still the best in the world, man. I hate this too, and I don't know why I backed ourselves into a corner with just 5. And I get why now you're talking about with Brock or whatever because of all these other guys, right? Fred, Lenoir, there's so many of them and everything. I think to your point, I understand that. But I don't know how you leave George Kittle off this list when we think that the 49ers offense is going to have to do more this season, and he's a huge part of that.
You don't leave him off this list, and that's because he is everything, to this offense, and he was last year when, two of the guys that we've named on this list were not there, CMC and Trent, and it felt like then the offense revolved around Kittle, and it was as successful as it could have been, right, without those other guys in the mix. But I think Kittle, filled in pretty admirably on his own, and I think yes, it speaks to the importance of him getting the ball more, right? And we know he has a big impact in, maybe helping out on some blocks here and there, although I think that's a little overblown, but he's good at that as well. He's certainly probably the best tight end at that if, we're just comparing him to other tight ends, but just the impact that he has on this team, the role that he has, he's multifaceted. I think, yes, he absolutely needs to be on this list. So who's that 4th, or who's our last guy, the 5th? And mind you,
I think Jay, we got our 5.
I have 4 because I didn't have Purdy.
You don't have Brock.
So I could add one more, I guess. I'm gonna go Fred.
So, all right, so this is good.
That was
this is
your
good.
5. So that was your 5.
Yeah, that's my 5. Yeah, that's good.
Your 5 was Purdy, CMC, Trent, Bosa, Kittle. Mm-hmm. My 5 are all those but Purdy, and I'm gonna put Fred in here because I think we've been so fortunate to not know what this defense would look like without him, and because
I don't want to know.
Exactly, he has just been the model of consistency and health that even when he's fighting through injury, you see how much effort he was wanting to put for this defense that was severely lacking, last season, right? I mean, he makes that defense go. I think when he's on the field, it's like he's the head coach of the defense. And yeah, I can't imagine what it would look like without him. I think about now, even without Greenlaw, right? That room is lacking, and we could probably have the same conversation of what's that depth looking like in the linebacker group if Fred goes down, right? Again, knocking on some wood here and hoping for his health this season. But yeah, I mean, Fred to me definitely has to be on this list. But this is a fun exercise. I'm really glad you asked, because there are so many impact guys on this team, which I don't know if the greater point of the exercise was to kind of say like, hey, like there's still a lot of foundational pieces, but Jay, there's a lot of foundational pieces on this team, and they're pretty good ones. There's a number of these guys that we would call the best player at their position league wide. So I think that says a lot.
And I think the point of this exercise is to show that the 5 most important players, the most of them are going to be on offense, because offense is going to be what is going to help this team mitigate whatever defensive issues and struggles they're going to have with, whether it's rookies or anything like that. Like this year, and we've been saying it, this year has to be a Kyle Shanahan cook it up offense year, right? If you think that Kyle is the coach, if we think Kyle is the coach that we think he is, and the offensive play caller and the scheme, guy, this has to be the year where offense has got to be lighting it up. And, that's really where I was going with this, right? Because on the back end of this, right, I don't have Fred Warner on it, but Fred Lenore, Dominic Pooney, Malik Mustafa, and Renardo Green, those are probably your other guys. Now, if you want to throw in Brandon Aiyuk when he comes back, we'll figure that out later on. We'll figure all that stuff out. We're talking about as of right now. Like we're operating under the assumption that maybe, God forbid, Brandon Aiyuk doesn't play. We're talking about day one, week one, right away, important guys. That's who these guys are. But yeah, the point is to show you the 49ers have a core and a foundational core that other teams would kill for. But the top 5 guys, a lot of them are going to be offense, because we really think that the offense has to be carrying the load, for this entire time, for all the time that we're worried about the defense. So yeah, I think that's really what the point of the exercise was. But it also is to show 49ers fans, when you're like, oh, I don't know about that, it's fine, but you have such high-end talent, other teams will kill for that.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I never said that I hope Brock Purdy goes down. Like I don't know where that came from in that comment. I definitely never did, and nor would I. This was a challenging exercise, and again, I think I'd be open to hearing anyone's 5 players, because that's just how challenging it was to like pick only 5. Like, there's a number of guys who could have gone on this list. So I'm glad we didn't completely agree.
Yeah, me too.
We always agree, Jay. It's like
people don't. Yeah, I was gonna say people don't like listening to us sometimes, because we're just like, I'm just like, hey, I think this, and you're like, I think that too, and we're just like, oh, cool. What's the next topic, right? Like I think people want to see us like go at it.
They want to see us fight.
Right. They just want to see us like crash out and fight, and it's just like I'm just like, hey, I don't really care about Brandon Aiyuk's social media. I don't really care either. Oh, we're best friends. Like, like I think people like, so like, look, at times it's good to be, rational and critical and stuff. But, you and I, we just, share a little bit of the same brain sometimes. But yeah, this was good.
If you want to see arguments, catch us with Rob.
Rob is always going to push back. Rob's going to be like, I don't believe that at all, man. I'm like, all right, don't yell at me. Like, what the hell? Rob, you know who's a good so can we rank like the argumentative pods on here or whatever on the Go Standard Podcast Network, like the 5, the most argumentative ones, I think one has to be Rob and Levin, because I don't know what it is. It's like Rob and Levin, it's like they're friends, but like they have like this like
mortal enemies as well,
right? Like it's like I love you, you asshole, like type, like that's like kind of like how they are. Oh yeah, so So I got them 1. I would say probably Robin Michelle would be 2, I think. I think Robin Vish would be 3. I don't think Rob and Johnny really argue, and you and I never argue. So we're 5th. Like we're always at the bottom. Yeah, like we barely disagreed on this.
We need
so yeah,
we need to disagree more. I think.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna start. You know what? I'm just
That's
gonna start playing devil's advocate, even if like
that's
if like you're wrong. What's the look, Rob? We got a few minutes, just and we can end the show on this. Hop in here and tell us what you think. What you think is the most argumentative podcasts are, because I think I got it right. I think I nailed that one. Like and the chat needs to let us know too. I mean, the faithful people that are watching. Go, Rob.
No, you're 100% right. I just wanted to say that you were.
But what is it? So look, my closest friends that I live in the area with or whatever, that I've grown up with, we have a group chat. All we do is make fun of each other, but it doesn't mean we don't like each other, right? But if someone read that on the outside, they would look and say, man, these people don't like each other. That's sometimes the sense I get with you and Levin. And it's just like, Levin's just like, yeah, well, you're always wrong. And it's just like, God, it's like, these guys really don't like each other.
We do. It's just, stuff happens when that red light goes on. You know how it is. Sometimes it just, we get into it a little bit. It's fun.
But that's entertaining, right? Like that's entertaining because you guys have strong opinions and you're able to disagree respectfully and all that stuff or whatever. But yeah, like me and Steph, it's just we're vibing and we're just like, yeah, I agree with you. And she's like, yeah, I agree with you. And we're just like, all right, what's the next topic? And it's just like it's always sunshine and rainbows over here.
Well, I was like, damn, we need to spice it up.
Nice, spice it up.
Brock off the top 5 list was surprising to me, Steph.
Rob, go for it. Go for it.
I kind of think the days of the 49ers quarterback not being one of the most important people are over, man. Like you signed that guy to a $53 million contract. He better be one of the most important people this year.
But like 5, like one of the top 5. I don't know. I mean, I see your point with like the contract thing, but I just think there's, again, if you look at the list, there's so many guys on it that we named that are the top at their position. Where does Brock rank among quarterbacks?
I hope they put Brock in position to be one of the 5 most important 49ers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think they do a good job of that, but that's why I think like they could also put other quarterbacks in that position as well. This is not like a Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard type of quarterback room. So like I almost think it's the last few years it's been better in that respect where some of these quarterbacks are a little more capable of stepping in. Look at Brock Purdy. I mean, we would have never known that he was this guy had he not gotten that opportunity. Why? Because the offense kind of gave him those options to be this guy, and it kind of tailored to all his strengths. But I think that's what this offense does. Like, it's just so easy for a quarterback who has a baseline of talent to look really good and operate this offense at a high level, because this offense tells you what to do when, basically.
I will say this. I wouldn't have put Jimmy Garoppolo in the top 5 most important 49ers, and he was the quarterback. And that's in there for Rob, because I know he likes those little, those Jimmy shots and everything. But look, the problem is that during that time with Jimmy, it's, oh, look how many games they've lost without Jimmy Garoppolo. And it's like, yeah, you better hope that Jimmy Garoppolo is better than Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard. Like, you're never saying anything. Like, people never were saying anything. We're never saying anything like that with any sort of merit, right? Like, I would hope Jimmy Garoppolo is better than CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins. I would hope, right? This time, and the reason that I feel like it's Brock is that Brock is operating this offense, and I would argue that the only other quarterback that's operated Kyle Shanahan's offense better than him, not the 49ers offense, a Kyle Shanahan offense, is Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan won MVP. So that's why I
wholeheartedly agree with that, by the way.
Yeah. So that's why I it's not the whole 49ers quarterback thing. It's like, yeah, that's why Sam Darnold signed here. That's why Matt Jones signed here. I think it's well known, right? But I kind of agree with what Rob said, and it kind of made me stick in my mind. It's like, I'm not just putting the 49ers quarterback in the mix. I'm putting Brock Purdy in the mix. The same thing we're talking about running back, right? Like, running back is is not a premium position, but we're not talking about a running back. We're talking about Christian McCaffrey. We're not talking about any 49ers quarterback. We're talking about Brock Purdy. So I think that's my thought process on why he's there at top 5.
Yeah, and I saw someone in the comments say Christian McCaffrey's not top 5 worthy because look at this running back room. Look at Jordan Mason last year. He put up really good stats, but he was not Christian McCaffrey. Like, he was far from it for this offense.
Oh, yeah.
There's just like, all these guys we mentioned, they bring something unique to this offense that raises the ceiling, and not just of the offense, of the whole team, that raises the ceiling of the team. And, I mean, like I said, on a different day, maybe I do name Purdy on this list and I knock someone else out like Bosa or McCaffrey, and again, like I'd listen to any of those arguments.
Again, good exercise, fun exercise, but the breaking news from this episode, Steph Sanchez leaves Trent Taylor off the top 5 most important 49ers, and I don't know how we're going to move forward in this podcast. That'll do it for this episode of the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Thank you guys for joining. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for when we go live. Follow Steph on Twitter at Steph49K. Follow me on Twitter, Jason Aponte2103. And, we both have YouTube channels as well, too. Take a look at the video, put a like on there as well, and subscribe as well, too. We both have some good content. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the Gold Standard Podcast Network, wherever you get all your audio podcasts. And for Steph, for Jay, we're out of here.
Peace.